Hi everyone. So we're going to finish up this short series of videos on functions with how to use your CAS to sketch functions and to define functions if you want to use them later on for another calculation. So let's start by going to our main calculation screen. Now there's a couple of ways that we can define a function. Okay, so let's say you want to define a function f of x equal to be, say, 2x minus 1. So what you could do is just type in your expression for the function, which in this case is 2x minus 1. And what we're going to do is highlight this, go up to interactive, and down the bottom of the list you should see define. Click that. It will ask you to put in the function name, which we'll just leave as f, the variable for which the function is defined, which is x, don't have to touch that, and the expression of the function 2x minus 1. So everything's fine, you just press OK, and it will go done. All right. So what the calculator has now stored in its memory is the expression 2x minus 1 as the, I guess you could call it a variable, f of x. So if I just write f of x and hit enter, it just gives me back the expression, okay? And what the calculator is now able to do is take any input for x and evaluate it and give you the answer. So let's do f of 1. Now let's think about what that answer should be before we hit enter. So if I substitute 1 into here, I shall get 2 times 1, which is 2, minus 1, which is 1. Let's see if the calculator gives us the right answer. Beautiful. All right, let's try another one. Let's say f of negative 3. So if I substitute negative 3 into here, I get 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, minus 1, negative 7. Hit enter, negative 7. Cool. You can also do pronumerals. So f of a, you shouldn't expect it to give you a number. It should just give you an expression, which is 2a minus 1. Try one more. Let's do f of 1 over m. And it should give you 2 over m minus 1. There we go. Okay, so defining expressions, or so defining functions, pretty easy. All right, there's another way to do it. Let's define a new function. We'll say g of x equal to x squared minus 1. Okay, now you can go to your keyboard, go to Math 3, and you can see it says define as one of the buttons. So you just click that and it will set you up. All right. So let's say we want to define the function g of x to be equal to x squared minus 1. Hit enter. Done. Okay, you can test it out. Let's do g of x. It should give me x squared minus 1. Cool. All right. Let's do g of 2. So think about that, what that would be. G of 2 would be 2 squared, 4, minus 1, 3. Cool, seems to work. All right, now what you can do is you can graph your functions. So let's go to our graphing screen. Okay, and instead of writing out your entire expression for the function, if you've already defined it, then you can just write in f of x or g of x or whatever you want to graph. So let's graph our function f. So we'll go f of x. See what happens. There we go, straight line. Let's graph our function g of x on the same set of axes. There we go. Cool. Okay, so graphing functions pretty easy. What we can also do is restrict the domain of our function. So let's go back to our main screen. I'm going to show you how to get rid of our definitions of these functions. So let's go up to here, this little settings icon, go to variable manager. We'll have one folder, hopefully, called main, which is the folder of this main screen here. Okay, tap on that a couple of times and it will open this main folder, and you'll see you have two functions or two variables which have been defined, which are your functions f and g. So we can get rid of them by ticking them Go Edit and Delete. Okay, so now those functions don't exist anymore in our computer's memory. So if I just try f of x, it doesn't give me anything, okay, because it doesn't remember what it is because we've deleted it. Let me clear this screen so it's a bit less cluttered. And we'll now start defining functions with restricted domains. So let's say we'll want to define a function 2x minus 1, but only between -2 and +3. So let's do it using the keyboard. Math3, define. We'll say f of x equals 2x minus 1. But we would like to restrict our domain. We don't want it to be all real numbers. We want it just to be between -2 and +3. How do you do that? Go to your keyboard, Math3, and you should see a button that looks like a vertical line. Click that. Now you're ready to tell the calculator what domain you'd like to define your function for. Let's say we want to include -2, but not include 3. Okay, how do we write this? Well, I like to call this sandwich notation because your variable x is sandwiched between the two endpoints of your domain. So we say we want to include -2. So you write -2. To include it, you must put a less than or equal to symbol. Okay, and you've seen this notation before. We've done it a couple of times. Followed by your variable x. And if you don't want to include the right endpoint, 3, you do strictly less than, and then a 3. Hit enter, it's done. If I ask the calculator what is f of x, it will just give me the rule. It doesn't tell me what the domain is. Okay, and if you try a whole bunch of values, it'll give you an answer. What if we try a number that's outside of the domain? Let's go f of -7. Okay, if that was included in our domain, we get 2 times -7, which is -14, minus 1, which is -15. However, because this value of x lies outside of the domain which we've specified, the computer chucks a fit and says, sorry, I can't work it out because the function's not defined for that value. Okay. You can also see the restricted domain when you graph it. So if you go to your graphing screen and you type in f of x, which we've already got there, graph it, you'll see that your graph is only drawn between the two endpoints. Let me zoom out a bit. There you go. So instead of the graph going on forever, it's only drawn between -2 and +3. We can also restrict the domain when we are writing our equation in the graphing screen. So let's write another equation. Let's just do, say, x² minus 1. We haven't given it a name. We haven't defined it as a function, so we're going to have to type it in manually. And let's say we want to restrict this one between -1 and 1. And let's say we'll include both of those endpoints. So you go to your Math3 keyboard, vertical line, and you write in your domain. So -1 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 1. Hit enter. And what we've done is we've said, okay, we want to graph x² minus 1, but only between -1 and 1. So if we do that, there we go. It's only graphed it between -1 and 1. That's the red line here. Let's zoom in a bit. There we go. Okay. So you can restrict the domain using this vertical line symbol and this specific notation here. If you want to say you just want all the values greater than a particular number, so let's say you want to sketch this parabola for all values greater than 0, you just write that in. Okay, you just say x is greater than 0. You don't have to use that sandwich notation. Okay, and if you graph it again, let's get rid of this f of x. Okay, you can see my graph has been drawn starting at 0, going on forever. Okay, I can zoom out You'll see there is no right-hand endpoint. It just goes on forever because that's what our domain is defined to be. Just x being greater than 0. It goes on forever to positive infinity. Okay, so that's how we define functions on our CAS, and that's how we can graph restricted domains on our CAS as well. All right, so I'll stop the video there. I'll see you next time.